Hello, everyone. It's Eugene, and
It's Anne-Marie.
And welcome to Half Awake Fully Caffeinated, episode
13, 14, 15.
No, definitely not. I think we're at 16.
16.
Because we have. Let's go ahead and check. Actually, ladies and gentlemen, we have gotten so far in Half Awake Fully Caffeinated that I cannot remember exactly what episode we're on. We're on 16. Episode 16.
16.
16.
It's a good number.
16, a good number.
Yeah.
Yeah, we done did it to 16, all the way to 16.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're sipping on India. This is a new origin drop.
I don't love the rose profile on it.
Yeah.
It has potential.
It has potential to be exactly the way that we want it to be, but it's not exactly the way that we want it to be. It's a little too light. It is the specialty development profile that leaves somewhat too many tannins.
Yes.
But let us get started, as is tradition. 2 coffee questions,
2 coffee?
2 non-coffee questions.
2 non-coffee.
My coffee question was, can you tamp too hard? And your coffee question?
Is there really quality equipment? Is it necessary?
See? And then my non-coffee question is, quantum displacement.
And mine is, how do nuclear power plants work?
We have very easy questions to answer today. And I don't know, who wants to start?
It's too early. I can't.
I believe in you.
Fine, I'll go.
Nope, I got it.
You
That's
know
fine.
you've gone first last few times.
No, not the last few times. Last 4 episodes, actually. It's gotten to the point where I'm almost
Then
the
I
majority.
Go. Okay, I don't care anymore.
It's okay, I'll go.
What are you starting with?
I'm going to start with tamping.
Okay.
So, Anne-Marie brought this up to me because there was a situation in which they were asked as to whether or not there is such a thing as tamping too hard. And I'm going to go ahead and let you know that yes, 100%, you can absolutely tamp too hard. And I'm going to give you the range of pressure that you can tamp on, that you should tamp to, and then I'll also give you the reasons why you shouldn't tamp too hard. But I think also may be important to define what tamping is. So tamping is after you've poured the espresso ground level coffee into your portafilter for your espresso machine, which is the little basket, and then you put it into your espresso machine. Yeah, whatever. Tamping is where you take that thing that came with your espresso machine and the basket and press it. And you press it because you want to make sure that there is not as much air between the coffee so that when the coffee comes, it has to work a little to get through the coffee grounds. But there is such a thing as going too hard with tamping. So the pressure range is 20 to 30 pounds, which is actually not as easy to calibrate as you would think.
Yeah.
As somebody who torques nuts to a certain pound number.
Someone who's like really strong and works on machines.
No, because you would probably strip a nail. You would probably strip it too.
Oh,
You don't realize how like light
We're
20
super
to 30
strong,
pounds is.
guys.
Dear Lord. But calibrating it can be a little hard. So if you're having a hard time finding that 20 to 30 pound range, I would look for a calibrated tamper, which has like, it's spring loaded so that when you press down on it, it clicks when you reach the specific number that you should be at. We have one of those in our shop, but before we bought that, it was mostly just by feel. If you don't want to get a calibrated tamping device, you can absolutely practice, and you can do that by tamping, testing your espresso, seeing how it comes out, if it comes out in the right time range. If it comes out too fast, you didn't tamp hard enough. If it comes out too slow, you tamped too hard. And then, yeah, those are the things that you can do to combat hard tamping.
What happens if you tamp too hard again?
So if you tamp too hard, which I haven't talked about
Oh,
yet,
okay.
it can cause your espresso to actually not even pull at all. You can legitimately press so hard that it turns into a brick, and then there's no way for the water to get through. It can elongate the brewing process, which causes over extraction. So way too much water is sitting with espresso for way too long, and then you just get something that does not taste like it should. And then there's other things like channeling, which channeling means that the water finds the path of least resistance to get through the puck. And if it's tamped too hard and it's distributed improperly, channeling will actually become more pronounced. And that means it's unevenly extracted. So not over extracted, but unevenly extracted because it found the path of least resistance. And it's like, well, this little crack here is how I'm going to get through. And then it left this big old chunk on the other side not. Yeah, yes. That's it.
Did you have anything, or were you out of it?
I honestly think that was it. But
I mean, it's tamping.
it is tamping. It's pretty simple, but I'm going to go ahead and check and make sure that I did not miss anything off of the notes that I had. And I think there is a lot more information on here about quantum displacement than there is about tamping. We're going to get there together.
Together.
Do you have any questions about tamping while I'm searching for these things?
So tamping is an art form because not only do you have to use the right amount of pressure, but like, so when you're talking about, God, it's so early, words are hard. With the not, is uneven distribution, okay? Is that what you're talking about? Same thing as if you tamp like at an angle or different? Same?
Yeah, I mean, so for most espresso machines and portafilter baskets, there's kind of like a flat area on the very tip of it that actually works perfectly to put the basket onto the edge of the table, and then it's at a perfect 90-degree angle on your table. So when you tamp, it tamps evenly, versus I've actually watched and witnessed individuals take it, like some espresso machines come with the 2 prongs on the bottom. I've seen people shove that onto a table and then tamp into it, which is wrong. But you shouldn't do that. That's why a bottomless portafilter is actually a really great way of going about it, because then there's just no mistakes that can be made.
It's also really pretty.
It's a lot prettier than the double
Yeah.
spout. The other thing that can happen if you tamp too hard is that you put strain on your machine, because your machine's like, I need to press water out this puck. And it's like, but I can't, because you ham-fisted this tamp. Yeah.
Yeah!
And that's all she wrote.
That's all she wrote.
That's all she wrote.
Amen.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to know about quality coffee equipment or nuclear power plants?
Let's do nuclear power plants.
Nuclear power plants.
Nuclear power plant.
Okay. Okay. So.
Buttons in your shirt.
Shut up. Nuclear power plants. So.
Buttons on your shirt.
Oh God. Okay. You have uranium. Okay. And uranium usually comes with 238 protons and neutrons. But 1 in every 140 lacks out 3 of those. So it's 125. 235 protons and neutrons. Stop reading my notes. Let me tell you about this. Those are the uranium atoms that we want because they're less densely packed on the inside. It means they're easier to crack open with fission. And so what happens inside of the nuclear power plant machines is they what's the very first step? I'm gonna be real honest, I forgot the very, very first step.
You gotta split the atom.
Yeah. Okay, that's, yeah. Neutrons, that's what I'm looking for. That's the word I'm looking for. Okay, so they crack open the atom, and what happens with that is a bunch of neutrons escape, okay? And when the neutrons escape, that creates energy. And they're super fast and they're whizzing around and everything, and then that causes them to crack open more uranium atoms, and so it's a chain reaction. So it's got to be the perfect amount of like heat, temperature, environment, all of that fun stuff. So that is the very basic layman's way of how we make nuclear energy. Is we crack open uranium and energy is emitted. Some of it's heat, some of it's random radiation and innards like gamma rays and stuff like that. But then there's also the energy. Now, however, inside of the nuclear power plant, inside of the machine, there are they need to have enriched uranium about 140, I believe, times. Just kidding. 47 times its natural abundance.
Yes.
Which they separate out the 235 and the 238 uranium particles in a machine, and then they take those 235 particles and then they put those in water to be purified water to be a moderator, because the neutrons. Thank you.
Jimmy Neutron.
The neutrons are moving too fast for them to hit the uranium particles. So they use water as a moderator to kind of help with that process. They also use rods made with elements that that help bounce the neutrons onto the uranium particles, atoms, all that fun stuff. So all of that is happening, super duper fun, makes energy. In fact, 1 kilogram of fuel made by one single power plant can fuel an average American household for 34 years. Wow. So like it makes a lot of energy, and so you're like, wow, that's amazing. And it only uses water, because the steam coming out of the tower is just steam. It's just water. And then you go, actually, no, because there's a lot of
radioactive waste.
Thank you. There's a lot of radioactive waste that comes with the fuel. So what they do is it's a combination of two different things. There's the used or spent fuel that they have to go in every couple of years, take some of it out so it doesn't get so built up and intense. Oh man. Inside the machine that it explodes, they put those in a pool of water, and that makes plutonium. And plutonium is a non-natural occurring element and is highly explosive. And so it also has a half-life of 2,400 years. So
it'll explode in 2,400 years.
It'll still be explosive in 2,400 years.
Oh, okay, got it. Oh yeah. Half-life is how. Okay.
Yeah. So there's that, and then there's also the energy and everything that's being produced inside the nuclear reactor as it's happening, because there's so much heat and energy going out. They also use purified water to cool that down. So there's a lot of water in the process. There's a lot of waste, radioactive waste in the process. And in summary, we don't really know what to do with the waste because it lasts for so long. And like America's only a couple hundred years long, and plutonium has a half-life of 2,400 years. So there's a big difference.
24 times the length of our...
Exactly. What are we going to do with that? How are we going to hide it?
12 times.
And then there's a place in Finland that's doing this, where they have built underground tunnels, and they're storing the radioactive shit deep underground in underground tunnels. The deep shit. Cover it up with big old like lead and concrete slabs and all of that. And then they're trying to figure out how we're going to warn people in the far future to be like, don't go in here, because like, what if humanity's wiped out? And then new humanity finds this hole in the ground. They can't open that. That'll kill them. It's like us opening the pyramids with the mummies.
But the mummies didn't kill us.
But the poison. You know what I mean. You know
What,
how
there was
they
poison?
would send birds down, and if the bird died, you couldn't go in there.
That's mining. That's not the
No,
pyramids.
that's pyramids.
That's a canary.
Yeah. Mining and pyramids. I promise you.
They did. So there was poison in the pyramids?
Either that or just like lack of oxygen.
Radioactive poison.
Anyway.
That's how good they were at making pyramids.
Yeah.
Is that it just reduced the amount of oxygen, period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get in anywhere near as much detail as
On pyramids.
I could have.
On pyramids?
No,
Or the nuclear?
on nuclear.
Nuclear. On nuclear.
Yeah.
This is just the plight of humanity, is that no matter what type of energy source we look at, there's always some sort of like, well,
Duh.
shit.
No energy is 100% efficient.
Nope. Because solar energy, you have clouds. No solar energy. And then wind, there was actually a really interesting quote from a congressman. And he was just like, wind is not an it's not like a infinitely available energy.
Because sometimes it's not windy.
No, actually it is not infinitely available, because if you create a wind farm and you have another wind farm behind it, and then you have another wind farm behind it, at a certain point, the amount of wind that gets through those wind farms is going to decrease because it had to get through the first part of the wind
Well,
farm.
yeah, but who's going to build a wind farm behind a wind farm?
I mean, at some point, that's how many wind farms need to be available for us to actually be able to use wind as a viable piece of energy.
Is that actually true?
What?
That we would need that many wind farms, that they're stacked side by side by side by side in order to power this country?
I think we don't really realize how big this country is,
And I
how
don't
much
think-
energy we actually use.
I
That's a question. How many wind farms is there
How many
needed?
farms is there? I mean,
And then how many birds are killed by a wind farm yearly?
you're really anti-wind farm.
It could be anywhere from 100,000 to 10 million, according to the statistics.
Why do you know that off the top of your head?
Because it was one of the funniest conversations I've ever had in my life.
Okay, well,
We were going towards Moab, and there's the wind farm there. And I have a friend named Phil and Roz. Phil is extremely he thinks differently.
he thinks different.
And honestly, we were just sitting there. It's like, I wonder how many birds get killed by a wind farm. And out of nowhere, I don't remember who looked it up, but they pulled up their phone and they're like, how many? And then it's just there was all of these documents, and there was research. It's according to research, this is how many birds die. And we were like, how did they get to this number? Because they was there a guy that walked around?
Counting all
They
the
just
dead
walked around
birds.
counting all the dead birds, and it's okay, but that's a single area, so it's you have to do that for every wind
Yeah,
farm
what
out
if
there.
he chose a really high bird density wind farm?
I know, Big Bird doesn't want you to
Big-
have wind farms.
Big
honestly.
Bird is anti-wind farm.
Big Bird. How does he sound in Elmo?
I have no
or
idea.
Sesame Street.
I genuinely don't know.
But what's interesting is that the sustainable energy is hard, and it's hard to find the perfect solution. Hydroelectricity is also another one that's extremely damaging to the environment that people don't realize, and also very dangerous because hydroelectric dams just kind of fail out of nowhere sometimes.
Unless you're Iceland.
Iceland is very heavily sustainable energy.
Yes, and they do it almost exclusively using
Hydroelectricity.
yeah.
They're much better at it than we are.
because it's natural in the environment. Their water just runs hot.
But the damming is what's the hard part. When they dam water, the dams are what fail.
Damn.
But there's lots of ways to make energy.
They all
and
suck, kind of.
No, not. But a lot of them can be very efficient. Like in the desert in Utah,
In the desert.
if you have a bunch of sun, you have lots of energy created.
But
during
what
a
if we
specific
put
period of time.
one solar panel farm next to another solar panel farm? Are they going to absorb all of the sunlight? Is that what's going to happen? One's going to take up all of the
You're
sunlight?
thinking about it in this.
What if we stack them on top of each other?
That's the wind dilemma. Is that if you
You're
stack
right.
solar panels on top of
Right.
each other, less solar comes
Yeah,
through.
then don't do that. There you go.
Exactly.
Problem solved. Ladies and gentlemen, I fixed energy.
I cannot wait to make this your next question, to go look at wind farms now, and also solar energy.
I studied them in an insane amount of detail in high school. I did a very big project on...
Why wind farms?
Actually, yes, wind farms specifically. I don't know. We just had to choose a source of renewable energy to research.
Yeah. But I guess where I'm trying to get to is that the problem isn't entirely just creating the energy, it's where do you put it? Because there are not batteries large enough to hold that energy legitimately.
These are the deep questions that we ask at 5:30 a.m.
It's gonna be a fun one for you because I can't wait to give you that one. It's actually
I
really
can't
fun.
wait to give you your question.
It's actually really fun. Okay, let's talk about quantum displacement. Quantum displacement. I'm gonna go ahead and open up a video for you guys because this is probably one of the most long-standing quotes in my brain that is...
I feel like this is cheating.
No, it's not gonna... Don't start it yet because it's
What?
just... All right. For the people.
Baby needs a new pair of shoes. To hell with your spoiled baby. I need those shoes. And it's a dead heat. They're checking the electron microscope, and the winner is number 3 in a quantum finish. No fair. You change the outcome by measuring it.
Okay. Go ahead and start it again. Quantum displacement. When I heard this quote, I was like, what the fuck does that, like, what does that mean? It's hilarious because it's like a absolute senile scientist from Futurama saying that quote. But it's actually a very intelligent quote coming from a show that you wouldn't expect that much intelligence. Think about, like, quantum, first let's get to how do you get to quantum mechanics or quantum displacement in the first place. It's at extremes, like extremely tiny or extremely fast or super hot or super cold. When you get to these extremes, physics as we see it, which I think is called just classic, just doesn't work. It does not apply to those laws. And so quantum displacement is when you're observing a particle from stupid close, like you have a 500,000 time electron microscope
Right.
looking at this particle. And when you look at it, it goes from here, and then you look at it again, it's here. But it doesn't move. Like, it doesn't move in the standard sense of it like went like that. It's like it was here, then it just appears here. And so it's like super miniature teleportation is what you would kind of think of it as. But the way that it's explained is a little bit more weird. Like a particle has a possibility cloud, and it's like within this cloud of possibilities is where it can exist at any point in time. Legitimately any point in time. So I tried to dumb this down in the most like human way possible so that we could understand it. And imagine a massive glass dome, like huge glass dome. And when you're outside of it, the entire thing's lit up. Like you can see all of it.
Uh-huh.
But then you open the door and you walk in and everything, there's a bunch of lights everywhere and all of them are covered by a frosted globe. And at any given point, the light can either be on or off. It's on and off, it's on and off at the same
Schrodinger's
time.
cat.
Yeah, pretty much like Schrodinger's cat, but there's no poison. And so you go over to one of the lights and you grab the globe and you pick it up. All of the other lights stop being on and off. And this light decides whether or not it's on or off based on the way that you're dressed and the way that you're breathing and everything. And it's like, well, off.
I don't like you.
So you pop up open and it's off. And you're like, but it was on and off at the same time. And then you close it again. And then you go to another one and then you're like, well, maybe it's here. And you pull it open. It's like, it's on. I'm here.
Hey.
But like, it's the amount of speed at which this light is changing. There's no speed. It's legit. It's instantaneous. Like there's no movement. There's no miles per hour. It's just here, 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 here. And the easiest way to think about it is like if you were to look at a light and you turn on the switch, like to us, it seems almost instantaneously that light turns on, but that light still had to travel to get there. Instead, it's just on
off.
on, off.
Is
I'm either.
Is it weird that I now understand apparition from Harry Potter a lot more clearly than I ever have?
Yeah, it is actually a little weird. So it's just this cloud, and so it's like it's a glass dome, and it's like the particle can literally exist within any place of this dome, and it exists and doesn't exist all at the same time. And so when you're trying to apply this, there's things like quantum computing, where they use something called qubits and then a quantum gate. And qubits are like bits. Bits communicate in zeros and ones. So when you have a 16 gigabyte memory piece, you have 16 billion or some random number bits, all calculating in zeros and ones. With qubits, they're both zeros and ones at the same time. So it can be 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, like that kind of stuff. And so every time you add a qubit, it exponentially increases the ability of the computer to be able to process something. And so when you give it something, it can do a quantum computer. You can give a quantum computer a massive math function or sorting function or something that requires a lot of data intensive sorting, and it can do it extremely quickly. If you were to take a quantum computer and try and play video games with it, it'd be completely ass, because there's just a lot of things going on with quantum stuff. But I hope I have explained it in such a way that makes sense. Within a certain sphere of a particle's existence, it can exist in any place, depending on the amount of energy that you have to input. So a lot of the times what they talk about is when you observe a particle, you change its position, because you have to provide a photon to light up what's there. And the photon is energy, and because that's energy, the position of the particle changes. So when in the quote where it's like, oh, it was a quantum finish, like it was legitimately so close you had to take an electron microscope to check it, by observing the result, you changed it.
Okay. I get it, but also
I don't. I get it, but I don't.
But at the same time, my brain is also going.
Yeah. 4 minutes isn't enough.
I know.
Was definitely not enough
We
for
asked
quantum
each other
displacement.
big questions.
Yeah.
We still have to talk about coffee equipment.
Yeah, it's yours.
I know.
I believe in you.
Okay. Okay. So, does quality coffee equipment make a difference? In short, yes, to an extent. What?
I just had a thought. I'll finish it later.
Okay. To an extent, yes. And it comes down to every single piece of equipment you use as well. It's not like you can get a cheap grinder and then a really good pour over set and you're fine. It's you got to have at least a certain level of quality across the board. So for example, starting with the grinder, the more expensive ones, the more higher quality ones are going to be burr grinders over blade grinders. Exactly. Blade grinders, no. You don't want a blade grinder for every reason ever, but basically because it slices the beans in uneven ways, so it's not evenly ground. You're gonna have big chunks and you're gonna have small chunks. Whereas if you use a burr grinder, it crushes it between them, and it's all gonna be the same size. So you're gonna have a more even grind size with a burr grinder.
So it's kind of like chopping with a knife versus like putting in a mortar and a pestle and smushing it.
Yeah. So that's the grinder, and so you got. But If you want a loud grinder or a quiet grinder, that's your opinion. That is what you want, and that's more or less what the price difference is after a certain point.
That's your prerogative.
It's your prerogative. If you want to wake the whole household up to let them know you're making coffee, fucking go for it, you know?
Yeah.
If you want to keep it quiet, you should get a quiet one.
Get a whisper drive.
And go shh. So, with that, yes. And then, let's take the pour over. So with specifically the V60, are you doing okay?
My neck hurts.
Okay. With the V60, you can have it made of different materials. You can have plastic, you can have glass, you can have ceramic, you can have copper. Each one of those is going to provide a different tasting coffee, predominantly because of conductivity, or the way it can hold heat. So a plastic pour over, plastic V60 is not going to maintain the heat the same as a porcelain or copper one is going to maintain heat. So there's going to be, in the process of pouring water, letting it fall down, pouring water, it's going to heat up and cool down, heat up and cool down, which is not going to be great because you like consistency when you're making coffee. So opt in for the slightly more expensive. I honestly like porcelain better than copper. That's my opinion and my preference.
I'm a copper guy because it's durable.
Yeah. So,
And I'm a ham fister, according to our conversation about nuts.
I just spat everywhere. So,
Keep going.
so
And bolts.
with that, quality, yes. And another thing that you're gonna look at as that for equipment is your kettle. You also want a good quality kettle. Predominantly a gooseneck kettle is what you're gonna want, at least for, okay, we're just doing for pour overs, guys. This is just for pour overs. You want a gooseneck kettle for pour overs, and those typically are more expensive than a regular old schmegular
Tea kettle.
tea kettle. And the gooseneck kettle is better because it you can have much more precision with the stream, with the flow, and as well as it's also like a narrower. So if you ever try doing a pour over with a tea kettle, it's just like the water's vomiting.
You're just not supposed to.
It's throwing up water onto the coffee grounds. But with a gooseneck,
A goo neck.
it's like precise.
Much more precise.
So, in short, to an extent, yes. Do you need the most expensive equipment to make good coffee? No. But do you make good coffee with cheap coffee equipment? No.
No. At a certain point, you just get to quantum coffee, where the grounds are so precise
The grounds
that
are both wet and dry
they're
at
both
the same
wet and dry at the
time.
same time. And honestly, the only reason that I would spend more than, say, $1,000 on an espresso machine is because you're actually working very hard on having a very consistent, very precise espresso.
Yep.
And a lot of people have Breville, which is totally fine. I get that question
fine, yeah,
all the time. It's
yeah,
like,
that's
what
fine.
kind of espresso machine should I get? And it's like, a Breville is actually, honestly, one of the best home machines you could potentially get. If you want a La Marzocco Linea Mini, which is 4.5 times more expensive than a Breville, you're legitimately a coffee lover, which is great, and you're in pursuit of a much more precise brew. And I would honestly say that's totally subjectively up to you.
Yeah. Coffee is subjective.
You could be using a blade grinder, and you could be, it's pretty much a spice grinder at that point. You could be using a spice grinder, and you can make your coffee, and if you like the way it tastes,
Then fuck yeah,
up
buddy.
to you, bro.
Go for it.
Brotato.
Bro-tato chip.
Brotato chip.
Brociphus.
Brosophysis. But honestly, pour over kits, same thing. The type of pour over also kind of depends, like Kalita Way versus a V60 or a Chemex, that kind of stuff. It's all down to your subjective profile.
Yes.
Sometimes you might feel like we're judging you, but we would never judge you for what you like. Just don't talk to us about it. All right, let's talk about topics for next time.
Okay.
My coffee topic for Anne-Marie is cold brew versus iced coffee.
Cold brew versus iced coffee.
This is legitimately like one of my biggest pet peeves at a diner or cafe or something like that. If I go in there and there's like, oh, we have cold brew, but it's not.
It's iced coffee. You can tell.
Ooh.
You can taste it.
Ooh, they're gonna get it. Right.
And my question for you, coffee question, is what is a Kyoto cold brew? Texting this to yourself.
Always. Okay.
Okay.
And then my question for you is batteries. What kind of batteries are there that we can use to power an entire community? Not just your home, like a big old Tesla battery, but a massive battery large enough to keep a community going after energy's been produced.
Got it.
I hope you get the examples that I found because they're pretty fucking insane.
Okay. I'm excited. My question to you is, who is Mitochondrial Eve? Tell me about her. What's her story?
Is this a real person? Is this a cultural? Is this a social? Are we talking about culture now instead of like actual science and math and coffee?
No. Well, no.
No. So they're not on TikTok.
No. Oh, she's too old for TikTok.
Oh, interesting. Cool. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, per usual, I'm gonna let Anne-Marie do our outro.
Thank you so much for watching, and if you watched and or listening with your ear holes. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. How uncomfortable my outro makes you feel. Pew, 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 pew.
Thank you.
Go.
Bye.